Ntwari omonto oria angaria ase eriaro ya esiko erochie eroche esugu na akarenge ase enyumba yanachirare ebinyumba yarenge gate ya ese atigeire atagachire na omwaganjo bwa sugu mwenyumba erie neyo bwarenge obwamaboko rigama erio na obwagare bwaye amaboko etano na egesero nago kiariochire sugu kwase atigire atagachire arenge no arenge nobogachire
obwagare arenge n'obwagare.
Then the man led me northward into the outer court and brought me to the room opposite the temple courtyard and opposite the outer wall of the north side. Their building, whose door faced north, was 100 cubits long and 50 cubits wide. Both in the section 20 cubits from the inner court, and in the section opposite the pavement of the outer court galley at the 3 levels. In front of the rooms was an inner passageway, 10 cubits wide and 100 cubits longer. Their doors were on the north. Now the upper rooms were narrow, for the galleys took more space from them than from the rooms of the lower and middle floors from the building. The rooms on the third floor had no pillars as the courts had, so they were small in floor space than those on the lower and at the middle. The rooms and the outer courts it excited in row of rooms on the side next to the outer side nearest the sanctuary was 100 cubits long. The lower rooms had an entrance on the east side as one enters them from the outer court. On the south side, along the length of the wall of the outer court, adjoining the temple courtyard and opposite the outer wall, were rooms with a passage in front of them. They were like the rooms on the north. They are at the same length and width, with similar exit and dimensions. Similar to the doorways on the north, where the doorway of the room on the south. There was a door at the beginning of the passageway that was parallel to the corresponding wall extending eastward, by which one enters the rooms. Then he said to me, the north and the south rooms facing the temple courtyard are at the priest's room, where the priest who approached the Lord will eat the most holy offering. There they will put the most holy offering, the grain offering, the sins offering, and the guilt offering. For the place is holy. Once the priest enter the holy presence, they are not to go into the outer court until they leave behind the garments in which they minister. For these are holy, they are to put on other clothes before they go near the place that are for the people. When he had finished measuring what was inside the temple area, he led them out by the east gate and measured the area all around. He measured the east side with the measuring rod, which was 500 cubits. He measured the north side, it was 500 cubits. By the measuring rod, he measured the south side, it was 500 cubits by the measuring rod. When he turned to the west side and measured, it was 500 cubits by the measuring rod. He measured the area on all four sides. It had a wall around it, 500 cubits long and 500 cubits wide, to separate the holy from the community. That is the end of Ezekiel chapter 22. When he turned to the west side and measured it, 500 cubits by the measuring rod, he measured the area on all four sides. It had a wall around it,
Ezekiel
500
43.
long and
Then the
500
man brought me to the gate facing the east, and I saw the glory of the God of Israel coming from the east. His voice was like the roller of the rushing waters, and the land was radiant with his glory. 3. The vision I saw, like the vision I have seen when he came to destroy the city, and like the visions I had seen by the river Keba, and I fell face down, the glory facing east. Then the Spirit lifted me up and brought me into the inner court, and the glory of the Lord filled the temple. 6. While the man was standing beside me, I heard someone speaking to me from inside the temple. He said, Son of man, this is the place of my throne and the place for the soles of my feet. This is where I will live among the Israelites forever. The people of Israel will never again defile my holy name, neither they will know their kings by their prostitution and the funeral of Pharaohs. For the kings of the dead, when they place their thresholds next to the thresholds and their doorposts, beside my doorpost with only a wall between me and them. They defiled my holy name by detestable practice, so I destroyed them in my anger. Now let them put away from their prostitution and the funeral offerings from their kings, and I will live among them forever. 10. Son of man, describe the temple to the people of Israelite, then that may ashamed of their sins, let them consider it perfect, and it will and if they will ashamed of all they have done, make known to the design of the temple, its arrangement, its exit and entrance, its whole design, and all the regulations and laws, write this down before them, so that they may be faithful to design and follow all the regulations. 12. This is the law of the temple. All the surrounding area on the top of the mountain will be most holy, such is the law of the temple. 13. These are measurements of the altar in long cubits, the cubit being a cubit, and a handbreadth is gutter is a cubit deep, and a cubit wide, with a cave of one span around the edge, and this is the height of the altar. From the gutter on the ground up to the lower ledge that goes round the altar, it is 2 cubits high, and the ledge is a cubit wide. From this lower ledge to the upper ledge, and that goes around the altar, it is 4 cubits high, and the ledge is also cubit wide. 15. Above that, the altar hearth is 4 cubits high, and 4 horns project upwards from the hearth. The altar hearth is square 12 cubits long, the 12 cubits wide. The upper ledge also is square 14 cubits. Long and large also is square, 14 cubits long and 14 cubits wide. All round the altar is a gutter of 1 cubit with a cave of a half a cubit. The step of the altar face east. 18. Then he said to me, Son of man, this is what I sovereign Lord said. This will be the regulation of sacrificing burnt offerings, the splashing blood against the altar when it is built. You are you are you are to give a young bull as a sin offering, so Levitical priests of the family of Zadok, who come near the minister before me, declares the sovereign Lord, you are to take some of its blood and put it on 4 horns of the altar, and on the 4 corners of the upper ledge, and all around the rim, and so purify the altar and make the atonement for it. You are you are to take the bull for the sin suffering and burn it in it. The designated part of the temple area outside the sanctuary. On the second day, you are to offer a male goat without defect for a sin offering, and the altar is to be purified as it was purified with the bull. When you have finished purifying it, you are offered a young bull and ram from the flock, both without defect. 24. You are to offer them before the Lord, and the priests are to sprinkle salt on them and sacrifice them as the burnt offering to the Lord. 25. For 7 days you are to provide a male goat daily for a sin offering. You are also to provide a young bull and a ram from the flock, both without a defect. For 7 days they are to make atonement of the altar and cleanse it. Thus they will dedicate it. At the end of these days, from the 8th day, on the priests are to present your burnt offerings and fellowship of offerings on the altar. Then I will accept you, declares the sovereign Lord. This is the end. Ezekiel chapter 44, verse 1. Then he brought me back to the outer gate of the sanctuary, which faces east, and it was shut. And he said to me, This gate shall remain shut, it shall not be opened, and no one shall enter by it, for the Lord, the God of Israel, has entered by it. Therefore it shall remain shut. Only the prince may sit in it to eat bread before the Lord. He shall enter by way of the vestibule of the gate, and shall go out by the same way. Then he brought me by way of the north gate to the front of the temple. And I looked, and behold, the glory of the Lord filled the temple of the Lord. And I fell upon my face. And the Lord said to me, Son of man, mark well, see with your eyes and hear with your ears all that I shall tell you concerning all the ordinances of the temple of the Lord and all its laws. And mark well those who may be admitted to the temple and all those who are to be excluded from the sanctuary. And say to the rebellious house, to the house of Israel, Thus says the Lord God, O house of Israel, let there be an end to all your abominations in admitting foreigners uncircumcised in heart and flesh to be in my sanctuary, profaning it. When you offer to me my food, the fat and the blood, you have broken my covenant. In addition to all your abominations, and you have not kept charge of my holy things, but you have set foreigners to keep my charge in my sanctuary. Therefore, thus says the Lord God, no foreigners uncircumcised in heart and flesh of all the foreigners who are among the people of Israel shall enter my sanctuary. But the Levites who went far from me, gone astray from me after their idols, when Israel went astray, shall bear their punishment. They shall be ministers in my sanctuary, having oversight at the gates of the temple, and serving in the temple. They shall slay the burnt offering and the sacrifice for the people, and they shall attend on the people to serve them, because they minister to them before their idols and became a stumbling block of iniquity to the house of Israel. Therefore I have sworn concerning them,
says the Lord God, that they shall bear their punishment. They shall not come near to me to serve me as priests, nor come near any of my sacred things and the things that are most sacred, but they shall bear their shame because of the abominations which they have committed. Yet I will appoint them to keep charge of the temple, to do all its services and all that is to be done in it. Verse 15, but the Levitical priests, the sons of Zadok, who kept the charge of my sanctuary when the people of Israel went astray from me, shall come near to me to minister to me, and they shall attend on me to offer me the fat and the blood, says the Lord God. Verse 16, they shall enter my sanctuary, and they shall approach my table to minister to me, and they shall keep my charge. When they enter the gates of the inner court, they shall wear linen garments, they shall have nothing of the wool on them, while they minister at the gates of the inner court and within. Verse 18, they shall have linen turbans upon their heads, and linen breeches upon their loins. They shall not guard themselves with anything that causes sweat. Verse 19, and when they go out into the outer court to the people, they shall put off the garments, all the garments in which they have been ministering, and lay them in the holy chambers, and they shall put on other garments, lest they communicate holiness to the people with their garments. Verse 20, they shall not shave their heads or let their locks grow long. They shall only trim the hair of their heads. Verse 21, no priest shall drink wine when they enters the inner court. They shall not marry a widow or a divorced woman, but only a virgin of the stock of the house of Israel, or a widow who is the widow of a priest. They shall teach my people the difference between the holy and the common, and show them how to distinguish between the unclean and the clean. In a controversy, they shall act as judges, and they shall judge it according to my judgments. They shall keep my laws and my statutes in all my appointed feasts, and they shall keep my Sabbath holy. They shall not defile themselves by going near to a dead person. However, for father or mother, for son or daughter, for brother or unmarried sister, they may defile themselves. After he is defiled, he shall count for himself 7 days, and then he shall be clean. And on the day that he goes into the holy place, into the inner court, to minister in the holy place, he shall offer his sin offering, says the Lord God. Verse 28, they shall have no inheritance. I am the inheritance, and you shall give them no possession in Israel. I am their possession. Verse 29, they shall eat the cereal offering, the sin offering, and the guilt offering, and every devoted thing in Israel shall be theirs. Verse 30, and the first of all the first fruits of all kinds, and every offering of all kinds from all your offerings shall belong to the priests. You shall also give to the priest the first of your course meal, that a blessing may rest on your house. Verse 31, the priest shall not eat of anything, whether bird or beast, that has died of itself or is stone. That's the word of God.
Ezekiel 45. Ona ningĩ atĩri, hĩndĩ iria mũkagaya bũrũri ũndũ wa gũcokeria mĩtĩ mũndũ wa mũndũ agwate igai rĩake rĩa kerĩ, nĩmũkarutĩra Jehova gĩcigo kĩaguo gĩtuĩke gĩcunjĩ kĩamũre kĩa bũrũri ũcio, naguo ũraihu wakĩo ũtuĩke o ta ũraihu wa mĩkono 25, onaguo warie ũtuĩke mĩkono 20. Gĩcunjĩ kĩu nakĩo gĩgatuo kĩamũre o nginya mĩhaka-inĩ yakĩo yothe ĩrĩa ĩgĩcirie na ndwere ciothe. Ningĩ kũu gĩcigo-inĩ kĩu gũgathimwo handũ haraihĩte mĩkono 500 ona hakarama mĩkono 500 ũguo hatuĩke handũ hamũre na hakorwo he thikwea, na ningĩ hathimwo handũ hangĩ ha mĩkono 50 na gũtuĩka baraganya waho ũhagicirie na ndwere ciothe. Ona ningĩ gĩcigo-inĩ kĩu hathimwo gĩcigo kĩraihĩte mĩkono 20,025 ona gĩkarama mĩkono 10,000 na nĩho hagakwo handũ hau hamũre o harĩa hatheru gũkĩra harĩa hangĩ hothe. Gĩcigo kĩu gĩgatuĩka kĩamũre thĩinĩ wa bũrũri ũcio na gĩtuĩke gĩa athĩnjĩri-Ngai acio atungati a handũ hau hamũre o acio mathengagĩrĩra hau noguo matungatĩre Jehova na hatuĩke ha gwakwo nyũmba ciao, ona hatuĩke hamũre nĩ ũndũ wa gwakwo handũ hau hamũre. Ningĩ hathimwo gĩcigo kĩngĩ kĩa ũraihu wa mĩkono 25,000 na gĩkarama mĩkono 10,000 gĩtuĩke kĩa Alawii o acio atungati a nyũmba ya Jehova kĩu nĩkĩo makegwatĩra gĩtuĩke kĩao kĩũmbe gĩa gwakwo matũũra ma gũtũũrwo. Ona ningĩ mũgathima gĩcigo gĩa gwakwo itũũra kĩaramĩte mĩkono 5,000 na gĩkaraiha mĩkono 25,000, nakĩo gĩcigo kĩu kĩhakane na gĩcigo kĩrĩa gĩtheru kĩrutĩirwo Jehova, nakĩo gĩgatuĩka kĩa andũ othe a nyũmba ya Isiraeli. Nacio icigo iria igatuĩka cia mũneneri ikagĩa mbarĩ cierĩ cia gĩcigo kĩrĩa kĩamũrĩirwo Jehova, ona mbarĩ cierĩ cia handũ hau ha gwakwo itũũra, nakĩo gĩcigo kĩu mwena wa ithũĩro kĩikie na mwena ũcio wa ithũĩro, nakĩo kĩrĩa kĩngĩ kĩa mwena wa irathĩro gĩikie na mwena wa ũcio wa irathĩro, ciĩkie gatina kaiganaine na ũraihu wa gĩcigo kĩmwe gĩa icio ingĩ, kuma mũhaka-inĩ wa ithũĩro nginya o mũhaka-inĩ wa mwena wa irathĩro. Gĩcigo kĩu nokĩo gĩgatuĩka gĩake kĩrĩa egwatĩire thĩinĩ wa Isiraeli. Nao anene akwa matigacoka kũnyarira andũ akwa onarĩ, no nĩ kũgaya makagaĩra andũ a nyũmba ya Isiraeli ithaka cia bũrũri ũcio o ta ũrĩa mĩhĩrĩga yao ĩtariĩ. Na rĩrĩ, Mwathani Jehova oigĩte ũũ atĩrĩrĩ, inyuĩ anene a Isiraeli, iganuai nĩ maũndũ macio mwĩkĩte na mũcoke mweherie ũhinya ona wanangani, mũhinganĩrie matuĩro ma ciira na mamũtuanagĩre ciira na kĩhooto. Tiganai na ũhoro wanyu wa gũtunya andũ akwa ithaka hatarĩ kĩhooto, ũguo-rĩ, noguo Mwathani Jehova oigĩte. Gĩagai na ratiri itingĩhenania ona eba itangĩhenania na ona mbarĩ ya gũthima nayo itingĩhenania. Eba cianyu ona bathi cianyu ituĩkage na kĩgeri kĩmwe kĩiganaine na getha bathi iganĩre gĩcunjĩ gĩa 10 kĩa homeri ĩmwe, na onayo eba ĩmwe ĩiganĩre gĩcunjĩ gĩa 10 kĩa homeri o ĩmwe. Ithimi icio-rĩ cierĩ iringane na ũrĩa homeri iganaine, nayo cekeri ĩmwe ĩkaiganana na gera 20. Ningĩ cekeri 20 ona cekeri 25 ona cekeri 15 mũcituage mane ĩmwe. Indo iria marĩrutagĩra Jehova nĩcio ici: nĩ gĩcunjĩ gĩa 6 kĩa eba ĩmwe kiumĩte harĩ homeri ĩmwe ya ngano, ona mũrehage gĩcunjĩ gĩa 6 kĩa eba ĩmwe kiumĩte harĩ homeri ĩmwe ya cairi. Namo maguta marĩa mũrĩrutaga na bathi matuĩkage gĩcunjĩ gĩa 10 kĩa bathi ĩyo. Thĩinĩ wa ikori ĩmwe nayo nĩyo bathi 10 kana homeri ĩmwe, nĩgũkorwo bathi 10 nĩcio homeri ĩmwe. Onako gatũrũme kamwe ka rũrũ karutĩtwo thĩinĩ wa mbũri 200 karutwo ũrĩithio-inĩ ũrĩa mũnoru wa Isiraeli. Icio nĩcio igatuĩka cia magongona ma mũtu ona mahaki ma njino ona magongona ma ũiguano, nĩguo mahorogagĩrwo nacio. Ũguo nĩguo Mwathani Jehova oigĩte. Andũ othe a bũrũri makaruta indo icio cia kũrutwo ine mũnene ũrĩa wa Isiraeli. Nake mũnene ũcio nĩwe ũrĩrutagĩra indo icio mahaki na njino ona magongona ma mũtu ona magongona ma indo iria irutagwo cia kũnyuuo acirutage hĩndĩ ya ciathĩ iria ituĩtwo, ona tũrũgamo-inĩ twa mĩeri, ona mĩthenya ya Thabatũ, ona ciathĩ-inĩ ciothe iria njathane cia andũ a nyũmba ya Isiraeli, nĩ arĩharagĩria igongona rĩa mehia, ona igongona rĩa mũtu, ona mahaki ma njino, ona magongona ma ũiguano, nĩgetha andũ a nyũmba ya Isiraeli mahorerio namo. Ningĩ Mwathani Jehova oigĩte ũũ: mweri wa mbere wa o mũthenya wa mbere wa mweri ũcio-rĩ, nyitaga ndegwa njĩthĩ ĩtarĩ na kaũũgũ ũtheri handũ harĩa haamũre nayo. Nake mũthĩnjĩri-Ngai oe thakame ĩyo ya igongona rĩa mehia-rĩ, amĩhake hĩngĩro cia mĩrango ya nyũmba ya Jehova, ona tũnua-inĩ tũrĩa twa metha ya kĩgongona, ona itingĩ-inĩ cia kĩhingo kĩa nja na thĩinĩ. Ningĩ-rĩ, ũguo noguo ũgaacoka gwĩka mũthenya wa 7 wa mweri ũcio nĩ ũndũ wa mũndũ o wothe wĩhĩtie, ona ũndũ wa mũndũ ũrĩa wekaga maũndũ make na ũrimũ. Ũguo nĩguo mũkaahoragĩria nyũmba. Na rĩrĩ, mweri wa mbere mũthenya wa 14 wa mweri o ro ũcio-rĩ, gĩagai na gĩathĩ kĩa Bathaka. Mũrĩe gĩathĩ kĩu mũthenya 7, na nĩ mĩgate ĩtarĩ mĩĩmbe ĩkario. Ningĩ-rĩ, mũthenya ũcio-rĩ, mũnene-rĩ, nĩaruta ndegwa ya igongona rĩa mehia, na nĩ ũndũ wa we mwene, ona ũndũ wa andũ othe a bũrũri. Ona ningĩ-rĩ, mĩthenya ĩyo 7 ya gĩathĩ kĩu-rĩ, akarutĩra Jehova ihaki rĩa njino, narĩo rĩtuĩke rĩa ndegwa 7 na ndũrũme 7 itarĩ na kaũũgũ. Acirutage mũthenya o mũthenya mĩthenya-inĩ ĩyo 7, na arutage thenge mũthenya o mũthenya nĩ ũndũ wa igongona rĩa mehia. Na nĩakaruta mũtu igongona o eba ĩmwe nĩ ũndũ wa ndegwa ĩmwe, ona eba ĩngĩ ĩmwe o ro ũguo-rĩ nĩ ũndũ wa ndũrũme na hini ĩmwe ya maguta, na nĩ ũndũ wa eba na ofa ya mũtu. Ningĩ-rĩ, mweri wa 7 o mũthenya wa 15,
Joy, which chapter have you reached? Kindly unmute yourself.
Offerings and city offerings and for the oil.
Ezekiel 46. This is what the foreign Lord says, that the gate of the inner court facing east to be shut on the 6th working day, but on the Sabbath day and on the day of the new moon it is to be open. The prince is to enter from the outside through the portico of the gateway and stand by the gatepost. The priests are to sacrifice his burnt offering and his fellowship offerings. He is to bow down in worship at the threshold of the gateway and then go out. But the gate will not be shut until evening. On the Sabbaths and new moons, the people of the land are to worship in the presence of the Lord at the entrance of that gate. The burnt offering the prince brings to the Lord on the Sabbath day is to be 6 male lambs and a lamb, all without defect. The grain offering, if given with the lamb, is to be an ephah, and the grain offering with the lamb is to be as much as he pleases, along with a hint of olive oil for each ephah. On the day of the new moon, he is to offer a young bull, 6 lambs as a grain, 6 lambs, a lamb, and a lamb, all without defect. He is to provide a grain offering to ephah with the bull, 1 ephah with the lamb, and with the lamb as much as he wants to give, along with a hint of oil for each ephah. When the prince enters, he is to go in through the portico of the gateway, and he is to come out the same way. When the people of the land came before the Lord at the appointed festival, when the people of the land came before the Lord at the appointed festival, whoever enters by the north gate to worship is to go out by gate is to go out of the north gate. No one is to return through the gate by which they entered, through the gate which he entered, but each is to go out by the opposite gate. The prince is to be among them, going in when they go in and going out when they go out, at the feasts and the appointed festival. The grain offering is to be an ephah with a lamb as much as he pleases, along with a hint of oil for each ephah. When the prince provides a free will offering, to the Lord whenever a burnt offering or fellowship offering. The gate facing east is to be open for him. He shall offer his burnt offering or his fellows offerings as he does on the Sabbath day. Then he shall go out, and after he has gone out, the gate will be shut. Every day you are to provide a year-old lamb without defect for a burnt offering to the Lord. Morning by morning you shall provide it. You are also to provide with it morning by morning a grain offering consisting of a seed of an ephah with a third of a hin of oil moisten the fat. The presenting of this grain offering to the Lord is lasting audience. So the lamb and the grain offering and the oil shall be provided morning by morning for a regular burnt offering. This is what the foreign Lord says. If the prince make a gift from his inheritance to one of his sons, it will also belong to his descendants. It is to be their property by inheritance. If whoever he makes a gift from his inheritance to one of his servants, the servant may keep it until the year of freedom. Then it will revert to the prince. His inheritance belongs to his sons only. It is theirs. The prince must not take any of his inheritance of the people, driving them of the prince must not take any of the inheritance of the people, driving them out of their property. He is to give his sons their inheritance out of his own property, so that not one of my people will be separated from their property. Then the man brought the meat through the entrance at the side of the gate to the square rooms facing north, which belongs to the priest, and showed me a place at the western end. He said to me, "This is the place where the priests are to cook the guilt offering and the sin offering and bake the grain offering to provide, bringing them into the outer court and consecrating the people." He then brought me to the outer court and led me along to its four corners, and I saw in each corner another court. In the four corners of the outer court, he enclosed 40 cubits along and 30 cubits wide. Each of the court is in the four corners was the same size. Around the inside of each of the four courts was a large stone with places with places for fire built all around under the lake. He said to me, "These are the kitchens where those who minister at the temple are to cook the sacrifice of the people." That's the word. Chapter 47. The man brought me back to the entrance of the temple, and I saw water coming out from under the threshold of the temple towards the east. For the temple faced east. The water was coming down from under the south side of the temple, south of the altar. Verse 2. He then brought me out through the north gate and led me round the outside to the outer gate facing east, and the water was trickling from the south side. As the man went eastward with a measuring line in his hand, he measured off 1,000 cubits, and then he led me through water that was ankle deep. He measured off another 1,000 cubits and led me through water that was knee deep. He measured off another 1,000 and led me through the water that was up to the waist. He measured off another 1,000, but now it was a river that I could not cross, because the water had risen and was deep enough to swim in, a river that no one could cross. He asked me, "Son of man, do you see this?" Then he led me back to the bank of the river. When I arrived there, I saw a great number of trees on each side of the river. He said to me, "This water flows towards the eastern region and goes down in the Arabah, where it enters the Dead Sea. When it empties into the sea, the salty water becomes fresh. Some of living creatures will live wherever the river flows. There will be a large number of fish, because this water flows there and makes the salt water fresh. So where the river flows, everything will live." Verse 10. Fishermen will stand along the shore from Engedi to Engedi. There will be places for spreading nets. The fish will be of many kinds, like the fish of the Mediterranean Sea. But the swamps and marshes will not become fresh, they will be left for salt. Verse 12. Fruit trees of all kinds will grow on both banks of the river. Their leaves will not wither, nor their fruits fail. Every month they will bear fruit, because the water from the sanctuary flows to them. Their fruit will serve for food and their leaves for healing. The boundaries of the land. Verse 13. This is what the sovereign Lord says. These are the boundaries of the land that you will divide among the 12 tribes of Israel as their inheritance, with 2 portions for Joseph. You are to divide it equally among them, because I saw with uplifted hand to give it your ancestors. This land will become your inheritance. Verse 15. This is to be the boundary of the land. On the north side it will run from the Mediterranean Sea by the Hebron road past Lebo, Hamath to Zedad. Verse 16. Belodah and Sibraim, which lies on the border between Damascus and Hamath, as far as Hazar Hatikon, which is on the border of Haran. The boundary will extend from the sea to Hazar Enan along the northern border of Damascus, with the border of Hamath to the north. This will be the northern boundary. Verse 18. On the east side of the boundary we run between Haran and Damascus, along the Jordan between Gilead and the land of Israel to the Dead Sea as far as Tamar. This will be the eastern boundary. Verse 19. On the south side it will run from Tamar as far as waters of
Meribah, Kadesh, then along the Wadi of Egypt to the Mediterranean Sea. This will be the southern boundary. Verse 20. On the west side, the Mediterranean Sea will be the boundary to a point opposite Lebo Hamath. This will be the western boundary. Verse 21. You are to distribute this land among yourselves according to the tribes of Israel. You are to allot it as an inheritance for yourselves and for the foreigners residing among you and who have children. You are to consider them as native-born Israelites. Along with you, they are to be allotted an inheritance among the tribes of Israel. In whatever tribe a foreigner resides, there you are to give them their inheritance, declares the sovereign Lord. That is the word of God.
Ezekiel kifungu cha miongo. Ezekiel chapter 48. Musawambe ani wama sita mamba isiosiayo kuma movakane wangaliko ya yulu venzia ya edhiloni kudhikuvika ulikiloni wa amadhi nginya nduane ya asalia oni ila yimuvakane wanda masiku na madhi ngaliko ya yulu kuende ya kuma ngaliko ya umililoni wasiwa nginya udhuloni wasiwa nicho kisio kila kinengwa mbaye ya ndani mbaye asili ikanengwa kisio kivakane tena kila chambaye ya ndani kumangaliko umililoni wasio kuvingaliko ya udholoni wasiwa mbaye na vitali ikanengwa kisio kila kivakane tena kila chambaye asili kumangaliko ya umililoni wasiwa kuvikangaliko ya udholoni wasiwa mbaye ya manese ikanengwa kisio kila kivakane tena kila chambaye na vitali kumangaliko ya umililoni wasio kuvikangaliko ya udholoni wasiwa mbaye ya Evalaimu ikanengwa kisio kila kivakane tena kila chambaye ya Manase kumangaliko ya umililoni wasio kuvikangaliko ya udholoni wasiwa mbaye ya Luveni kikanengwa kisio kila kivakane tena kila chambaye ya Evalaimu kumangaliko ya umililoni wasiwa kuvikangaliko ya udholoni wasiwa mbaye ya Yuta ikanengwa kisio kila kivakane tena kila chambaye ya Luveni kumangaliko ya umililoni wasio kuvikangaliko ya udholoni wasiwa kisio cha mwanya kila cha ikati kisio kila kiatie kila chambaye ya Yuta kumangaliko ya umililoni wasio kuvikangaliko ya udholoni wasiwa nichocha kivadho kithwe kisio cha mwanya kikethwa kina udhanda wa kilomita 12 na nusu kumangaliko ya yulu kuvikangaliko ya etheo wasa wacho kumangaliko ya umililoni wasio kuvikangaliko ya udholoni wasio ukethwa uyanene na isio ile inenge tumba ile inge ikalo ikethwa kisio ni kiu kikati kisio kila muva kundu wa muyai ngai kikethwa kina wasa wa kilomita 12 na nusu na udhanda wa kilomita 10 adhambi makethwa ni kisio ndeni wa kisio kiu kitheu kumangaliko ya umililoni wasio kuvika udholoni wasio kisio kiu cho kikethwa kicha kilomita 12 na nusu kumangaliko ya yulu kuvikangaliko ya etheo kikethwa kina kicha kilomita 5 ikaluya muye ingai ikethwa kisioni kiu kati na musayo 11 kisio kiu kikethwa kina kicha dhambi ala abathe njawa ya nzatoki alama mamuthukumie na wikiu na mayandi ya yelandu maisraeli mandeiye undu alivoimekie kwa makethwa na kisio kiu cha mwanya kuma kisione kila kitheu cha nthi kisio kila kitheu vyu kila kivakanitwe na kisio cha alivai otau alivai makethwa na kisio chonga likuethwa ya kila cha dhambi kisio kiu onacho kikethwa na wasawa kilomita 12 na nusu kumangaliko ya umililoni wasio kuvikangaliko ya udholoni wasio kikethwa na udhanda wa kilomita 5 kumangaliko ya yulu kuvikangaliko ya etheo kisio kila kivathitwo kundu wa muyengei nicho kisio kila kisio vyonthisi yonthe na vai kimwe cha kisio chacho chailite kuthoua na kukuanwa na kingi kana kunengwa mundu kisio kiu ni kitheu nicha mwenge. Mstari wa 15 kilungu cha kisio kiu cha mwanya kila kitialite kwa cha wasa wa kilomita 12.5 na udhanda wa kilomita 2.5 kikatumia kwa maundu langi andu ni matona kutua vo na kiithiwa na isesi ndua ikethiwa kisione kiu kati wa ndua isu ikethiwa ya nene ngaliko cionthe kila ngaliko ikethiwa na wasa wa mita 2,250 ndua isu ikethiwa ithululukitwa ni mwanya wina uthandu wa mita 125 kila ngaliko. Kisio kila kitiala chai kisio kiu kikethiwa na wasa wa kilomita 5 na uthandu wa kilomita 2.5 ngaliko ya umililano wasio na wasa wa kilomita 5 na uthandu wa kilomita 2.5 ngaliko ya uthulilano wasio usio wa kisio kiu ukethiwa liu ala matetha cia wia ndua nesu ala matetha cia wia ndua nesu ni mbayo onimba ona ya yiva ya Israeli makai ma kisione kiu kwa uu kisio chonthe kila mwivatha kila ni kisio kithegwa mwena kisio cha ndua ukethiwa kianene ngaliko cionthe ukethiwa na wasa wa kilomita 12.5 kila ngaliko. Kisio kila kitialite ngaliko sielisia kisio kila kitheu na kisio cha ndua ukethiwa kicha mutongoi. Kisio kiu kikethiwa kiandete ngaliko umililano wasio kuma kisione kila kitheu kila kina uthandu wa kilomita 12.5 kufika muvakani wa ngaliko umililano wasio otau kisio kiu kikethiwa kiandete ngaliko ya uthulilano wasio kuma kisione kiu kitheu kufika muvakani ula wi ngaliko ya uthulilano wasio isio isu sieli ila sie na wasa wiana wa isio ile insina ngamba ya Israeli ikethiwa sisi ya mutongoi. Kisio kila kitheu kati wacha vake veithiwa wikalo wa Ngai na kisio alivai vamwe na kila chandua ikethiwa kati wa kisio cha mutongoi kikethiwa kati wa kisio cha mbai ya Yuta na kisio cha mbai ya Benjamin kisio cha nthi ya mbai ile ingisi ya Israeli na musa miongole na itatu mbai ile itialite ikaiwa isio sio tau mbai ya Benjamin ikanengwa kisio chayo kuma ngaliko ya umililano wasio kufika uthulilano wasio mbai ya Simeoni ikanengwa kila kivakanisho na kila cha mbai ya Benjamin kuma ngaliko ya umililano wasio kufika ngaliko ya uthulilano wasio mbai ya Isakari ikanengwa kisio kila kivakanisho na kila cha mbai ya Simeoni kuma ngaliko ya umililano wasio kufika ngaliko ya uthulilano wasio mbai ya Zebuluni ikanengwa kisio kila kivakanisho na kila cha mbai ya Isakari kuma ngaliko ya umililano wasio kufika ngaliko ya uthulilano wasio mbai ya Ngandi ikanengwa kisio kila kivakanisho na kila cha mbai ya Zebuluni kuma ngaliko ya umililano wasio kufika ngaliko ya uthulilano wasio kisio kila kivakanisho na cha mbai ya Ngandi kwelekela ngaliko ya itheo muvaka usuka mndwane ya Tamali kuthi kufika kigune kila kimeliva katesi naendi uithi wisilite kalusini ka Misili kufika ukangani wa Mediterania isu niyo ndila mwiyane cia nduma mbai cia Israeli ithio utiwa wo kila mbai ikanengwa kisio chayo ni asa unia mwiyai wa musumbi mithia ya Yerusalemu na musa wa 3 ndua ya Yerusalemu ikethiwa na mithia tau ukuta wa ngaliko ya yulu ukethiwa na wasa wa mita 2,250 na ukethiwa na mivia itatu muvia wa Luveni muvia wa Yuta muvia wa Livai mivia isu ikethiwa iketwa masito mamba ya Israeli ukuta wa ngaliko ya umililano wasio ukethiwa na wasa wa mita 2,450 na ukethiwa na mivia itatu muvia wa Yosefu muvia wa Benjamini muvia wa ndani ukuta wa ngaliko ya ukethiwa na wasa wa mita 2,450 na ukethiwa na mivia itatu muvia wa Simeoni muvia wa Isakari na muvia wa Zebuluni
ukuta wa ngaliko ya uthuloni wasio ukethwa na usawa mita ngilile manale na 500 na ukethwa na mivia itatu, mivia wa ngandi, mivia wa seli, mivia wa navutali. Wasa wa ukuta usu wonde kuthiululuka mbo ukethwa mita ngili kenda kuma yu na kuende ya ndua isu iketa muyai ngaiyevo. Ezekieli.
Daniel chapter 1. I'm reading in Kitaita. Mwaka wa kadadu iji Jehoiakim orekoge mzinyi wa Juda Nebukadneza mzuri wa Babiloni orechiege ukagurugiria mzi wa Jerusalemu. Bwana ukamungira Jehoiakim mzuri wa Juda mikononi kwake chemweri na vilambo vimu va hekaluni, ukavireda isangaja bebaluni kwa nyumba ya milungu wake, na vilambo va hekaluni ukaviranganya na vilambo va milungu wake. Niko mzuri Nebukadneza ukamlagira Eshapenazi uo orekoge mbaha wa vanjama vake, urede vandu vamu va Israeli vose va nyumba ya kivuzuri na avo verekoge vaba verekoge vikaiye vandu va irika viseko na ishtikio vigokie sana vikona kumanya kwa hekima yose, vichulo ni kumanya na hekima ekunda kufundisha vidimaga kudumikia andenyi ya ngome ya mzuri. Ashapenazi orekoge uvifundishe hata vimanye kiteto cha kibabiloni. Mzuri ukafunya momu kukaiya uvineke vindo vinorie kila ituku ivoveni vere jiwaga ni mzuri na divei echeni erevangwaga ni mzuri. Vifundisho kwa miaka idadu na nyuma ya ngelo iro kukata viredo kwa mzuri kudumikia. Verse 6. Vamu vavo vandu verekoge Daniela na Hanania na Mishael na Azaria vakichuku cha Juda, ujambaha wa vanjama va mzuri ore vinekiege marina. Daniela ukambanga Bethshazari na Hanania ukambanga Shedrak na Mishael ukambanga Meshak na Azaria ukambanga Abednego. Verse 8. Ela Danieli ukaririkanya na kudumbua malago gake moni kwa kukaya ndecha a kulusha na ivo vindo va mzuri vinorie na divei iyo ere ngulwaga ni mzuri. Niko ukamlomba uja mbaha wa vanjama umleke na ivo vindo. Mlungu ukambonya Daniela urumirie mesonyi kwa uja mbaha wa vanjama. Ukamzera Daniela na via ubua Bwana wapo mzuri uo ulagirie vindo venyu na kunywa konyu ukamkua mdorume kuchumba vabonyi va irika jenyu vadima kunibwaga. 11. Niko Daniela ukamzera uja mziganiri ore vikiloge ni mba wa vanjama umziganire uo. Nao Hanania na Misheli na Azaria ditime isi vadumiki vako kwa matuku 10. Dineke mboga dije na machi dinyo. 13. Nao ukavifananisha kwa redu na ravabonyi vandu va irika avo vavevuja vindo vinorie kuvinyavika kukutanya kumoni seji kwavuya divona seji vadumiki vako nao ukavisikira kwa ijo ilago ukavitima kwa matuku 10. Hata kutua kwa ago matuku 10 ukavineka kukaiya kwana raveke Daniela rekoge rigokie na mimbi yavo ibandie kuchumba ya vandu vairika vambao verekoge vikija vindo vinorie va mzuri. Kwa huvo uja mziganiri ukavinji vija vindo vavo vinorie na divei ukakaiya ukivineka mboga. 17. Mulungu ukavineka abo vandu vairika bana hekima na kumanya kukufundisha, ukamneka Daniela kumanya kutambua mabono na ndodo rose. Kutua kwa iro ngelo mzuri ukafunya memu abo vandu vairika vigenjo kwake. Ujamba wanjama kolovi ukavigenja kwa Nebukadneza, nao mzuri ukadedanya navo vose. Ela agadi kwavo ndekore koge na mdungi ore vonekiege udimaga kuvifananisha na veke Daniela, Hanania, Mishael na Azaria. Kwa huvo avo vikarumirilwa vidumikie imbiria mzuri. Verse 20. Kwa malago gose ga hekima na kumanya aho mzuri oregikoterege ukavivona avo ukaiya vaboye mando 10 kuchumba avo vaganga na vasavi vose verekoge andenya uzuri wake. 21. Daniela ukasigarika aho ngomenyi kwa mzuri hata mwaka wa imbiri wa mzuri Koresh. That's the end of chapter 1.
Daniel chapter 2. In the second year of his reign, Nebuchadnezzar had dreams. His mind was troubled and he could not sleep. 2. So the king summoned the magicians, enchanters, sorcerers, astrologers to tell him what he had dreamed. When they came in and stood before the king. 3. He said to them, I have had a dream that troubles me, and I want to know what it means. 4. Then the astrologers asked the king, may the king live forever? Tell your servants the dream and he will interpret it. 5. The king replied to the astrologers, this is what I have firmly decided. If you do not tell me what my dream was and interpret it, I will have you cut into pieces and your houses turned into piles of rubble. 6. But if you tell me the dream and explain it, you will receive from me gifts and rewards and great honor. So tell me the dream and interpret it for me. 7. Once more they replied, let the king tell his servants the dream and we will interpret it. 8. The king answered, I am certain that you are trying to gain time because you realize that this is what I have firmly decided. 9. If you do not tell me the dream, there is only one penalty for you. You have tell me misleading and wicked things, hoping the situation will change. So then tell me the dream and I will know that you can interpret it for me. 10. The astrologers answered the king, there is no one on earth who can do what the king asked. No king, however great and mighty, has ever asked such a thing of any magician or enchanters or astrologers. 11. What the king asked is too difficult. No one can reveal it to the king except the gods. They do not live among humans. 12. This king so angry and furious that he ordered the execution of all the wise men of Babylon. 13. So the decree was issued to put the wise men to death, and men were sent to look for Daniel and his friends to put them to death. 14. When Arioch, the commander of the king's guard, had gone out to put to death the wise men of Babylon, Daniel spoke to him with wisdom and tact. 15. He asked the king's officers, why did the king issue such a harsh decree? Arioch then explained that the matter to Daniel. 16. At At this, Daniel went in to the king and asked for him for time so that he might interpret the dream for him. 17. Then Daniel returned to his house and explained the matter to his friends Hananiah, Misha, and Azariah. 18. He asked them to plead for mercy from God of heaven concerning his mystery, so that he and his friends might not be executed with the rest of the wise men of Babylon. 19. During the night, the mystery was revealed to Daniel in a vision. Then Daniel praised the God of heaven, 20, and said, "Praise be the name of God forever and ever. Wisdom and power are his." 21. He changes times and seasons. He deposits kings and raises up others. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to the discerning. 22. He reveals deep and hidden things. He knows what lies in darkness, and light dwells with him. 23. I thank and praise you, God of my ancestors. You have given me wisdom and power. You have made known to me what we asked for. You have made known to us the dream of the king. 24. Then Daniel went to Arioch, whom the king had appointed to execute the wise men of Babylon, and said to him, "Do not execute the wise men of Babylon. Take me to the king, and I will interpret his dream for him." 25. Arioch took Daniel to the king at once and said, I have found a man among the exiles from Judah who can tell the king what his dream means. 26. The king asked Daniel, also called Belteshazzar, "Are you able to tell me what I saw in my dream and interpret it?" 27. Daniel replied, no wise man, enchanters, magicians, or diviners can explain to the king the mystery he has asked about. 28. But there is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries. He has shown King Nebuchadnezzar what will happen in days to come. Your dream is the vision that has passed through the mind as you are lying in bed are these. 29. As your majesty was lying there, your mind turned to things to come, and the revealers of mysteries showed you what is going to happen. 30. As for me, the mysteries have been revealed to me, not because I have great wisdom than anyone else alive, but so that your majesty may know the interpretation, that you may understand what went through the mind. 31. Your majesty looked, and there before you stood a large statue, an enormous, dazzling statue, awesome in appearance. 32. The head of the statue was made of pure gold, in chest and in arms of silver, its belly and thighs of bronze. 33. Its legs of iron, its feet are partly of iron and partly of baked clay. 34. While you were watching a rock, pardon? While you were watching, a rock was cut out, but not by human hands.
Tuko mbali, naweza enda hadi, wacha tusibadilishe hadi chapter 7.
It was struck.
Alafu kwanza 7 nitawapeni watatu.
It was struck the statue of its feet of iron and clay and smashed them. Then the iron, the clay, the bronze, the silver, and the gold were all broken to pieces and became like chaff on the threshing floor in the summer. The wind swept them away without leaving a trace. But the rock that struck the statue became a huge mountain and filled the whole earth. 26. This was the dream, and now we will interpret it to the king. 37. Your majesty, you are the king of kings. The God of heaven has given you dominion and power and mighty and glory. 38. In your hands he has placed all mankind and the beasts of the field and the birds in the sky wherever they live. He has made you ruler over them all. You are that head of gold. 39. After you, another kingdom will rise, inferior to yours. Next, a third kingdom, one of the bros, will rule over the whole earth. Finally, there will be a fourth kingdom, strong as iron, for iron breaks and smashes everything. And as iron breaks things to pieces, so it will crush and break all the others. 41. Just as you saw that the feet of the toes were partly of baked clay and partly of iron, so these will be divided into kingdom. Yet will have some of the strands of iron in it, even as you saw iron mixed with clay. 42. As the toes were partly iron and partly clay, so the kingdom will partly strong and partly brittle. 43. And just as you saw the iron mixed with baked clay, so the people will be mixed and will not remain united any more than mixes with clay. 44. In the time of those kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom that will never be destroyed, nor will it be left to another people. It will crush all those kingdoms and bring them to an end, but it will itself endure forever. 45. This is the meaning of the vision of the rock cut out of the mountain, but not by human hands. A rock that broke the iron, the bronze, the clay, the silver, and the gold to pieces. The great God has shown the king what will take place in future. The dream is true and its interpretation is trustworthy. 46. Then the king Nebuchadnezzar fell prostrate before Daniel and paid him honor and ordered all offering and incense be presented to him. 47. The king said to Daniel, surely your God is God of gods, the Lord of kings, and the revealer of mysteries, for you were able to reveal this mystery. 48. Then the king placed Daniel in a high position and lavished many gifts on him. He made him ruler over the entire province of Babylon and placed him in charge of all its wise men. 49 and the last one. Moreover, at Daniel's request, the king appointed Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego chief ministers over the province of Babylon, while Daniel himself remained at the royal court. That's the end.
Alex chapter 3. Alex chapter 3.
Yes, I'm listening. Are you getting me?
Yes, read chapter 3, please.
I may continue. Let me continue. Then King Nebuchadnezzar made image of gold, 60 cubits high and 6 cubits wide, and set it up on the plain of Dura in province Babylon. He then summoned the satraps, governors, advisors, treasurers, judges, magistrates, and all the other provincial officials to come to the dedication image he had set up. So the satraps, prefects, the governors, advisors, treasurers, judges, magistrates, and all other provincial officials assembled for the dedication of the image that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up, and they stood. Then loudly proclaim, nations, peoples of every language, this is what you are commanded to do. As the sound, flute, zither, pipe, and all music, you must fall down and worship image of gold that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up. Whoever does not fall down and worship will immediately be thrown into a blazing furnace. Therefore, as soon as they heard the sound of horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, and all kinds of music, all the nations and peoples of every language fell down and worshipped the image of God that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up. At this time, some astrologers came forward and denounced the Jews. They said to King Nebuchadnezzar, may the king live forever. Your Majesty has issued a decree that everyone who hears the sound of horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipe, and all kinds of music must fall down and worship the image of God, and that whoever does not fall down and worship him will be thrown into the blaze of furnace. But there are some Jews who you have set over the affairs of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who pay no attention to you, your majesty. They neither serve your gods nor worship the image of God you have set up. 13. Furious with rage, Nebuchadnezzar summoned Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So men were brought before the king, and Nebuchadnezzar said to them, "It is true, Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, that you do not serve my gods or worship the image of God I have set up." 15. Now when you hear the sound of flute, zither, the harp, pipe, and all kind of music, if you read, fall down, worship the image I made very good. But if you do not worship, you will be thrown immediately into the blazing furnace. Then what good will be able to rescue from my hand? Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied to him, Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you in this matter. 17. If you are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to deliver us from it. He will deliver us from your majesty's hand. But even he does not, we want you to know, majesty, that we will not serve your gods and worship the image of God you have set. Then Nebuchadnezzar, furiously with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and his gratitude towards them changed. He ordered the furnace heated 7 times hotter than usual. 20. And commanded some of the strongest soldiers in his army to tie up Shadrach and Abednego and throw them into the blazing furnace. So these men, wearing their robes, trousers, turbans, and other clothes, were bounding, thrown into the blazing furnace. The king's command was urgent and furnace hot, that the flames of fire killed the soldiers who took up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And these 3 men firmly tied them into the blazing furnace. The king Nebuchadnezzar leaped to feet in amazing and asked his advisers, "Weren't there 3 men that we tied, threw into the furnace?" They replied, "Certainly." He said, "Look, I see 4 men walking around in fire, unbound and unharmed, and 4th looks like a son of God." And then approached the opening of the blazing furnace. Shadrach, Abednego, and servants of Most High, "Come out, come here." So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came out of the 27. And the satraps, perfect governor, and royal advisors crowded around them. They saw fire had harmed their bodies, nor were a hair of their heads singed. Their robes were not scorched, and there was no smell of fire on them. Then Nebuchadnezzar said, "Praise be to the God who sent these angels and rescued his servants. They trusted in him and defied the king's command, and were willing to give up their lives rather than serve other worship any god except their own God. Therefore, I decree that people of any nation or language who say anything against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego be cut into pieces, and their houses be turned into piles of rubble. For other gods, King promoted Shadrach, Meshach in the province of Babylon.
Chapter 4. Nebuchadnezzar praises God. King Nebuchadnezzar, to all people,
Zoom meeting.
nations,
Zoom meeting.
and languages who dwell in all the earth, peace be multiplied to you. It has seemed good to me to show the signs and wonders that the highmost God has done for me. How great are his signs, how mighty his wonders. His kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and his
Nimefungua app.
dominion endures from generation to generation. I, Nebuchadnezzar, was at ease in my house and prospering in my palace. I saw a dream that made me afraid. As I lay in bed, the fancies and the visions of my head alarmed me. So I made a decree that all the wise men of Babylon should be brought before me, that they might make known to me the interpretation of the dream. Then the magicians, the enchanters, and the Chaldeans, and the astrologers came in, and I told them the dream, but they could not make known to me its interpretation. At last Daniel came in before me, he who was named Belteshazzar, after the name of my God, and in whom is the spirit of the holy gods. And I told him the dream, saying, O Belteshazzar, chief of the magicians, because I know that the spirit of the holy gods is in you, and that no mystery is too difficult for you. Tell me the visions of my dream that I saw and their interpretation. The visions of my head as I lay in bed were these. I saw, and behold, a tree in the midst of the earth, and its height was great. The tree grew and became strong, and its top reached to heaven, and it was visible to the end of the whole earth. Its leaves were beautiful and its fruit abundant, and in it was food for all. The beasts of the field found shade under it, and the birds of the heaven lived in its branches, and all fleshes was fed from it. I saw in the vision of my head as I lay in bed, and behold, a watcher, a holy one, came down from heaven. He proclaimed aloud and said, Thus chop down the tree and loop off its branches, strip off its leaves and scatter its fruit. Let the beast flee from under it and the birds from its branches, but they leave the stump of its roots in the earth, bound with a band of iron and bronze, amid to the tender grass of the field. Let him be wet with the dew of the heaven. Let his portion be with the beasts in the